Jayatya Santrasa Dhvanta Vidvamsa Nodaya Prabhavan Sitaya Devya Paramavyoma Bhaskaraha. The one who was none but the son to the entire clan of Surya Vamsham, the one on whose birth the lotuses of that particular Vamsha, the race, bloomed. Hey Sri Ram, I offer my salutations to you, is the meaning of the verse that I have recited now. Ram was born to Kaushalya. Bharat was born to Kaikeyi. Lakshman and Shatrughna were the sons of Sumitra. The beautiful line of Valmiki reads, Balyat Prabhriti Susnigdaha. Right from the birth, they were also attached. There is one interesting phenomenon that we can observe. The payasam or the condensed milk that came in the vessel with the Yajna Purush was given to Dasharath, who distributed the payasam amongst his wives. He gave 50% to Kaushalya, 25% to Sumitra, 12.5% to Kaikeyi, and the remaining 12.5% to Sumitra yet again. So the order was Kaushalya, Sumitra, Kaikeyi, Sumitra. So the birth of the children should have been Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, but it was not so. The payasam was distributed in that order of Kaushalya, Sumitra, Kaikeyi, Sumitra, but the children were born in a different order. It was not Ram who was born to Kaushalya, and then it was not Lakshman who was born. It was Ram, it was Bharat, then Lakshman and Shatrughna. Now, the attachment of the brothers is observed by a very great Nepali poet called as Bhanubhaktacharya, who says, Payasake Anusarale. What is Payasake Anusarale? Though the children were born in the order of Ram, Bharat, Lakshman and Shatrughna, the attachment did not grow in the way in which they were born, in the order in which they were born, but the attachment was the way in which Payas was given. It was Ram, Lakshman and Bharat, Shatrughna. Just imagine a simple example. Even if we have to utter the names of those brothers, we don't say Ram, Bharat and Lakshman and Shatrughna. We say Ram, Lakshman and Bharat, Shatrughna. This is the way that we have been practiced, and this is how we have been living for years and millenniums and yugas, all these years, for we are all devotees of Ram and we have all relished the great epic poem Ramayana. Right from the birth, they were also attached. Kalidas, in his magnum opus Raghuvamsham, says, if somebody would ask for Ram, Lakshman would also come along. If somebody would ask for Bharat, Shatrughna would also come along. If Lakshman was always there with Ram, Shatrughna was always there with Bharat. It doesn't mean that Bharat did not like Ram. All the four brothers were extremely attached. There is one interesting incident, though not found in Ramayana, but a hearsay which has been quoted by a great preceptor, a great acharya who lived in the 20th century. He gives this particular anecdote. It seems the four sons who were born to Dasharath were crying one day. Dasharath was so worried. He felt, if the children would cry this long for the entire day, I do not know even if these sons would survive. So he called his family priest Vasisht to say, hey Vasisht, could you please find a solution to the crying of my children? I am so worried. I just feel like crying. My sons are crying right before me. They are just newborn children. Vasisht came there and noticed a certain phenomenon. He said, all these four kids, all these four newborn sons of yours have been put up in cradles. Ram in a cradle, Lakshman in a cradle, and between Ram and Lakshman's cradle was another cradle with Bharat, and next to Lakshman's cradle was a cradle of Shatrughna. So the order was Ram, Bharat, Lakshman, Shatrughna, each of them in one single cradle. Now, Vasisht said the order is wrong, Dasharath. So he pulled out the cradle of Bharat, put the cradle of Bharat next to Shatrughna and the cradle of Lakshman next to Ram. Now, it seems the intensity of crying by those newborn babies or sons reduced by half, but still they were crying. Now, Vasisht said, "Hey Dasharath, remove those two cradles of Lakshman and Shatrughna." Dasharath said, "Hey Rishi, hey Vasishtha Mahamuni, if I would remove the cradles of Lakshman and Shatrughna, where do I keep Lakshman and Shatrughna?" That time, Vasisht said, "Please put Lakshman in the same cradle as that of Ram. Please put Shatrughna in the same cradle as that of Bharat." And when Dasharath followed the words of his family priest Vasisht, the children stopped crying and they started smiling. The moral of this anecdote is just to say the brotherhood and the fraternity which these kids and these sons enjoyed. It is tough to find this kind of a thick bonding amongst brothers in the other Puranas as well. Well, when we talk of two epics and two itihasas, Ramayana speaks about the brotherhood and fraternity that existed. Why? Talk about the other scripture which is Mahabharata, which just talks about the fights and the Mahabharata war itself which ensued between the brothers because there was no brotherhood amongst them. So you can never find such a thick bonding anywhere else in our Puranas except amongst Ram, Lakshman and Bharat, Shatrughna. They were so attached. While they were attached, there occurred an interesting incident. We hear of something called as Krishna Leela. We have all heard of it because the entire Bhagavat Mahapuran, the 10th canto, the 11th canto and partly the 12th canto in Srimad Bhagavat, which is a Mahapuran, talks about Krishna Avatar, the incarnation of Lord Krishna. There, within the age of 12, by the age of 12, Krishna did so many activities. He killed Putana, he killed Shakatasur, he killed Keshi, he killed Pralamb, he killed Vatsasur, he killed Trinavarta, he danced over the serpent called Kaliya, he lifted the beautiful mountain called Govardhan, he was the one who killed his maternal uncle who was torturing the innocent called as Kans. He was the one who killed the atrocious elephant called as Kuvalaya Peet. He was the one who was to have won over those two great gym trainers called as Mushtik and Charnur. While he did all this within the age of 12. But what did Ram do within the age of 12? We can spot something as Krishna Leela, but never something as Ramleela. Still, people keep wondering why is it called Ramleela Maiden in Delhi when Ram did no Leela? No, there is interestingly one Leela that he did, and even that one Leela that Ram did resulted in a disaster. Oh my goodness, Krishna committed so many Leelas and performed so many Leelas and that did not result in disaster, and Ram just did one and did that result in disaster? Yes. Ram was supposed to be coronated as the next heir for the entire province of Koshala with its capital as Ayodhya by Dasharath. But the entire coronation was stopped by a lady with a hunch called as Manthara. Why did she stop? Will be a question that we'll answer later. But there's an interesting incident that happened in Ram's childhood, boyhood. Ram, with his brothers, would stand with the little bow and the little arrow. And that little arrow would have a little mud ball. Mud. The clay used to be clumped together, dried under the sun and used to be attached to those little arrows. And Ram used to aim those little arrows at people. And they would enjoy this as a childish prank. But what did Manthara do? When the little mud ball used to hit her hunch, she then thought, Ram, even being a boy, you have this anger on me. You do not know to respect me. You have insulted me. Become that right moment. And at that right moment, I will see to it that I take vengeance on you, and I'll see to it whatever you have attained or whatever you're going to attain shall not be attained. So this was the only little childish prank he performed. Look at the consequence that he had to bear against Lord Krishna, who would keep on killing people, yet enjoy all the luxuries and comforts. Probably this is very true in life. We see so many people around who commit so many crimes, yet they are quite happy. but we may not commit even one, may not even think of one, yet we suffer a lot. So the only answer to this is karma. We have been destined to enjoy this, we have been destined to live like this, so let's live with it instead of even questioning, because life is too short to contemplate and ponder upon things for which we may not seek answers, at least from us or at least from people around. The only way is to lead by enjoying Ramayana and these kind of episodes. Now we need to enjoy and we need to understand what Ram did. Ram with his brothers went to the hermitage of Vasisht, who was the family priest. In those days it was very mandatory for a Kshatriya, Brahman and the Vaishya, the three classes of people, to undergo the thread ceremony at the age of 7. Ram, along with his brothers, underwent the thread ceremony. After the thread ceremony is over, which is regarded as a rebirth to the three classes of people, for which they are called as Dvijas. Dvijaha means one who is born twice. Since they are born from the mother's womb once and again born from because of the thread ceremony, they are called as Dvijaha. These kids of Dasharath, namely Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, underwent the thread ceremony. The next process was to go to the hermitage of Vasisht, the family priest, a very learned person, to learn the Shastras, the Vedantas and the Shastras that are required for a Kshatriya, that is Astra Vidya and Shastra Vidya. So they reached the hermitage of Vasisht, lived for the Gurukula Vasam there and learnt all the Shastras that need to be learnt by an able administrator and a Kshatriya and came back. While they came back, Dasharath was one day seated in his court. He was contemplating, oh my goodness, my sons have come to the right age. I need to now think where to get them married. Who will marry them? How will I get them married? Who will be the girl? How should the girl be? How able are my children? How will I find a solution to all of this? Well, this is a worry that occurs in parents who have girls and boys. But the age at which those kids were, just imagine at what age they could have been. Ram was at the age of 12 and that time Dasharath thought where to get my son married. So does that denote that parents have to worry about their children's marriage right from their children's age of 12? No. In those days, getting married early was a custom. Though we are not following it as of now because we abide by the law, let's at least respect the emotions of what would have happened in those days. What is required for marriage is one important question. A lot of the counselors and a lot of the intellectuals say marriage is not about age. Marriage is not about qualification. Marriage is not about culture. Marriage is not about tradition. Above all, marriage is about the maturity, the level of maturity to which both the bride and the groom are. Probably Ram was mature since his birth and at the age of 12 itself he was so mature that his father Dasharath thought that I should get my son married. If the parents of these days are not thinking about getting their children married even at the age of 30, it simply denotes that they are so sure that the level of maturity in their children has not reached that particular extent. So respecting that particular custom and tradition, let's see how Dasharath found a solution to this particular worry where to get his sons married, especially Ram, who was close to his heart. Thank you.